today, and it's really appropriate to have a session on housing if you're talking about poverty. For too long, I think it's been seen as a silo, as a separate issue. Yes, it's a low-income problem, but it hasn't been seen when people talk about, well, how are we going to do something to lower the poverty rates, or how are we going to correct childhood poverty? People have not recognized the extent to which the lack of affordable housing really sometimes actually causes poverty. It's not just a result of it, but can actually cause poverty and certainly impair someone's ability to get out of poverty. You have jobs programs, but people can't keep jobs if they don't have a stable home. And when they get evicted, they very often lose their job because they can't concentrate on it. Education doesn't work. When I was at home, we had a program where we tried to keep people in their homes at a school because the turnover rate in inner city public schools is gigantic. And teachers say that's one of the main reasons the children are not being educated, is that when they bounce from school to school, it's very, very difficult. As Bill said, a lot of what I'd like to sort of organize what we're talking about is around this book called Evicted. It's a new book by Matthew Desmond, who is, he's billed as a Harvard sociologist. He, I guess just last year, got a MacArthur Genius Award. And after reading this and reading what he did in order to gather the information for this book, I understand why. It's really amazing. It's based on the research that he did in Milwaukee. So, you know, it's about his experiences in living with families in Milwaukee and their housing situation. He tells 3 major stories following families, different families, through their experiences with housing, getting evicted, what's possible, getting forced out, even if you're not evicted. And then he followed up with incredible amount of research. They surveyed over, I think it was 1,100 tenants in the Milwaukee area to compare sort of the data to what he was seeing in knowing these families for a year, and did a lot of combing through eviction records to try to get the face of what's going on. One of the reasons, here, I'm going to pass this around. I recommend it highly as I'm talking. I'll take my notes out of it though. One of the reasons I got so excited is that when I read his book and what he was talking about, or read the descriptions of it in the New York Times, it's like, wow, he has said what I've been trying to say but wasn't very articulate in doing. The lives that he's talking about are the people and the tenants that I knew when I worked at home, and the difficulties that they faced. And the story about his findings, he can describe the incredible substandard living conditions that people live in when they're poor because they don't have any choice. The instability that it creates in a family when you're constantly having to move. But also, you know, his final result, that you can have all the anti-poverty programs in the world you want, but if you don't address the housing issue, that they're never really going to work. That is what's causing instability more than anything else. John's going to talk a little bit about the statistics and the Cincinnati statistics, just to know that Cincinnati's housing market, in my experience at least, is very, very like Milwaukee's. So what Desmond talks about in that book, the situation he finds, it's us, it's Cincinnati. Sometimes the studies are done on the East Coast or the West Coast, and it's sort of hard to relate them to our housing market because our housing market is different. This is us, what he's describing, and what happened. It's also important to understand that he's not talking about a subsidized market. You know, he's talking about the private market for all those folks that don't have a subsidy. It's estimated about 1 in 4 of the families that are eligible for some of the assisted housing programs, whether it's public housing or housing vouchers. Only 1 in 4 actually get it. So the story that's being told here is about that other 75%. What happens to the people that do not have any assistance in their housing and are simply relying on a market, a very, very imperfect market, where income just does not meet the rent levels, and where rent levels are continually going up income is not. And so more and more households, families are spending 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, in one case in his book, 90% of their income, you know, just to keep a roof over their head. And what that means as far as being marginalized in the rest of their life. So I'll just leave it there and recommend the book, and then I'll let John talk a little bit about the formal statistical stuff.
Great.